Oh my goodness, we're live.
Hello.
Hi, all. I am Curtis Morrison with Morrison Urena, and this is our Carolina Solano.
Hi. I'm Carolina Solano. I'm an associate attorney here at Morrison Urena.
Yeah. Today, we're going to talk about several immigration topics, and then we're going to do some question and answers after. Um, so, um, I guess we could just jump right in because we have a lot to cover and we want to cover it within the hour. Um, First thing we wanted to discuss Title 42. Carolina, has there been some
Yeah.
developments on that?
Boy, has there been. Yes, there. Title 42 is, I think, commonly referred to as the Remain in Mexico policy. Has been back and forth in a years-long court battles, determining whether or not it was legal to implement that kind of policy in the first place. To kind of take a step back, the right to seek asylum has always been a right that exists, and it's available to individuals who are arriving at our borders seeking protection. But around March 2020, under the Trump administration, uh, that right, that fundamental right, was virtually suspended until this week. But we'll get to that in a moment. Um, just a little bit of background on what Title 42 was intended to seek. It was implemented for COVID-related reasons, right? So at the time, the CDC under the Trump administration had said that in order to prevent the spread of COVID, this type of policy was necessary. Um, while that was the stated reason, I think it's a commonly known fact at this point that the Trump administration had a broader anti-immigrant agenda, if you will. So
Really?
yes, I don't, I'm just saying, I'm stating the facts here. I'm not trying to take an opinion.
Right.
But it was a policy that was invoked to achieve that sort of anti-immigrant agenda. And shamefully, uh, I mean, this is now my opinion, I suppose, Curtis, but shamefully, the Biden administration has continued to use this measure despite uh, problems with the legality of the policy in the first place. So even recently, it was expanded to explicitly expel Venezuelan asylum seekers. So they weren't trying to dial it back. I think they were
Right.
intent on expanding it. So that's why this decision is so important this week, because after this back and forth in court about whether or not the Biden administration could even end this kind of policy, whether it was legal to begin with, um, lots of lawsuits brought on by Republican-led states. I think there was like about 24 lawsuits at this point that have been trying to support the continuation of this policy. Uh, U.S. District uh, Court U.S. District Court Judge Emmett Sullivan, he ruled that Title 42 was in fact arbitrary and capricious, which is my favorite way to say that this has no reasoning, no precedent. It's random,
Right.
and it's
Stop
basically,
being random.
yeah, stop being so random. But in this is so important just because the big question has always been whether or not the Trump administration even had the authority to implement such a policy. And so this decision, this ruling, has said that Title 42 was illegal to
Right.
begin with. So
So, so backing up a little bit for our viewers that
yes, I know that was
may
quite a lot.
right,
Sorry.
right, familiar with what this means on the ground. You mentioned Venezuelan. So, under Biden's expansion of the program, a Venezuelan would present themselves, say at Tijuana at the border, and say, "I would like the protection of asylum." And under the old days, like the history of the U.S. up before Trump, what would happen? There'd be a credible fear interview.
Right. So it doesn't matter how you enter into the U.S. If you have a claim to asylum, you have a right to make that claim within a year, I believe, of entering the U.S. So um, historically, you are given the chance to have what is called a credible fear interview. And at this interview, you're given that chance to explain why you're being persecuted, who is persecuting you, the reasons why you fear going back to your country, to your home country. And so there was a process, a sort of due process, if you will, not traditionally, but it was some kind of due process that they were awarded. And so Title 42 essentially did away with that, because if you were found to have gone through Mexico to reach the US border, then you were asked to remain in Mexico. You were not given a chance to make that claim to asylum. And so that has been largely criticized by the public. There has been actually a lot of reporting that Title 42 had the opposite intent, the opposite effect. It was meant to, I guess, deter asylum seekers from entering, but in actuality, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Curtis, there's been historically high rates of apprehensions at the U.S. border that has been reported on,
Right.
and has been largely throughout Title 42's implementation. So it does beg the question as to what the purpose was.
Right. Right. Unexpected consequences.
Yes.
I think we've done a good job. Is there anything else we want to say? Oh, I want to say one thing. I think it's great that the judge found that it was unlawful and to stop doing it now. And I'm very curious what ACLU's reasoning was in not opposing the stay.
Yeah.
Because the government said, well, okay, well, before we implement your order, give us 5 weeks. And the ACLU, who was the plaintiff in that case, who I would normally be celebrating because they just changed the policy for the better, they went along with it. And there's going to be people that are turned away at the border between now and December 21st, go back to
for
Mexico,
5 weeks.
And something's going to happen to them that are bad. And that blood is on ACLU. And I'm tempted to file a lawsuit for that class of people because that's just ridiculous. A judge has said it's unlawful, and ACLU said, okay, well, it's okay. You could do it for a little bit more.
It's extremely infuriating to see that stay motion was unopposed. Of course, Judge Sullivan is going to grant it if no one is going to oppose it. So it is it's baffling. So it is set to go into effect December 21st. And so, yeah, it does beg the question what is going to happen between now and then, but we are going to be watching and monitoring that very closely.
Right. Okay. Moving on, I see you had wrote me a note that someone resigned from their job. Who was that?
Oh, that was the Customs and Border Protection Commissioner, Chris Magnus. He resigned after a lot of pressure to step down. There has been criticism after some recent remarks that Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas had apparently lost some confidence in his ability to lead CBP. And so that was going to come one way or another, but it's been said that this is a very high profile position, a very high profile position that's now vacant. So we'll see what's going to happen there. But I kind of did see this coming.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yes,
well, I kind of like to see a shakeup there because maybe it might mean there might be a shakeup at the State Department soon. I mean, of course, I'm very opinionated. I want Secretary Blinken to be fired, but if it's Julie Stuff, if it's anyone at the visa office at all, except for like the people that clean it, I would be okay. We just need to start somewhere because right now there's a lot of Trump loyalists running that bureaucracy, and it's leading to awful outcomes.
And on that note, I mean, it's quite frankly, it's infuriating to see even, Secretary Mayorkas kind of like proudly say that the Biden administration has expelled more individuals in the U.S. than ever before, and just very like, kind of proud about that. It's just, So that's always interesting. So yeah, as you said, any shakeup is a good one at this point. But I think hopefully, speaking of some shakeups, there was some exciting news today with DACA. Not as far as legislation, we can all hope for that being the case, but there was some activity today outside of the U.S. Capitol, which was kind of exciting to see. Although it is frustrating to see these kind of issues come up in what we call a lame duck session. So
Right.
we'll see again what happens with these DACA recipients that have been waiting on legislation from Congress for decades at this point.
Right. Right. Yeah, that would be a good thing if they bring that stuff together by the end of the year. That would be nice.
We will see. There's been, there's obviously support on the Democratic side, but we are still missing some support on the Republican side. So we'll see about that.
Reading about that. Okay, so another thing I wanted to talk about, I don't know if it's a news or development so much as my awareness changed and I became aware of a part of a procedure that I didn't know before. It was because of the Department of State AILA liaison meeting. I think after their notes, they updated their best practices. And so I decided to review it. And on case transfers, there's something I think everybody should know about. I'm getting a lot of inquiries about case transfers, mainly because there's a few U.S. embassies, not naming names, Islamabad, Abu Dhabi, that have backlogs that are so big they're not going to be cleared out probably in the foreseeable future. So visa applicants that are assigned to those interview locations that are in the queue are coming at me and coming at our team with these questions all the time. How do I change my interview location? And so what we've learned, let me make sure I got this right. If your case is at NVC, the procedure to change your interview location is to use the public inquiry form, right?
Yes.
Okay. And this is something me and you were talking about before. We didn't realize this. They want you to have a physical address and proof of residence in the new jurisdiction. Now, a lot of times people don't have that. They're just going to Barbados or El Salvador for a month to get this visa adjudication done or something, right?
Right.
Or Europe, anywhere in EU where they don't have backlogs.
I mean, quite frankly, we saw individuals do anything. They will travel anywhere in the world if their the resources allow. But this is a little bit upsetting. It seems like an added hoop for everyone to jump through, because before the language just simply said, even though you're not a resident in this district, so you just need to show that you'll be present, physically present throughout the
I think the FAM code says 30 days, that you're going to be there 30 days. And that's why I always encourage people when they ask for the interview location to change, to say, hey, and I'm going to be able to be there 30 days. That's important.
Exactly. Yes.
So what this guidance says from AILA now is that NVC, if you give that evidence of permanent residence, that they can make that change without contacting the embassy. But if there's a question, how did they word it? If there's a
question on your residence.
If applicant's residency is in question, which means you didn't provide proof that you are a lawful permanent resident of Barbados or wherever, then they will ask the embassy's permission. So it's not you asking the embassy, it's you using the public inquiry form to ask NVC, and then NVC asks the embassy. Now, what's interesting is if that comes back and they say no, the embassy tells NVC no, and then NVC tells you no, it's not the end of the day. I've had visa applicants successfully contact the embassy directly that they want to transfer to with a compelling reason, not necessarily supporting evidence, but like any kind of like pregnancy complication. My spouse is, oh no, he has to go in the military. Something
like an exigent circumstance, some sort of
a compelling reason that's unique. Okay, not he's depressed because we're apart. I recommend these applicants never say that, because that's part of the process. It's everybody has that. You want it to be something unique. So anyway, go back to the embassy and ask the embassy, because I think the embassy has the ability to claw that interview from NVC as well. So there's actually two ways to do it. But the first way, you want to do their procedure, for a transfer, ask NVC first. and NVC will probably ask the embassy, but then you can go back to the embassy and ask the embassy too.
Yes, and I feel like communications internally between the embassies have just they're quicker for a reason. But yeah, you always want to have communications between embassies would be great if you're trying to transfer from one embassy to another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And we're talking about for people that haven't had an interview yet, whose cases are still at embassy. If you've had an interview and you're in AP at that embassy, you don't want to transfer to another.
Oh, yeah, definitely not.
Okay. I see you wrote something here about affirmative asylum.
Yes. Well, for affirmative asylum, we apparently the form I-589 can be filed online, which is
in 2022.
I am skeptical for online filing just because if there's size limitations and all that, you can definitely have some issues with PDF uploads that I've seen.
Right.
So that can be a double-edged sword, but it is a good thing. It's opening accessibility to be able to apply for affirmative asylum, which just for those who don't know, the difference between affirmative and defensive asylum. Affirmative is you are not in removal proceedings. Defensive asylum, you are in removal proceedings. Very simple. But so this only applies to affirmative asylum. So
right. And Morrison Urena does offer representation in both affirmative and defensive asylum.
yes.
Don't forget that.
Yes.
Although I should say this, because we're getting a lot of inquiries from people wanting asylum that are on the other side of Earth. You can only seek asylum at a port of entry or within the United States. So
yes.
our hands are tied in what we can do for you if you are not in one of those locations. So.
And also, it's interesting that you say that. It's heartbreaking to have to say that, but it's also a testament to the immense risk that asylum seekers are taking when they are making these trips from their home countries where they're being persecuted. They're going through dangerous conditions through other countries as they're making the very long journey to the United States, to then be faced with these anti-immigrant policies. It just perpetuates not maybe the same violence, but it is perpetuating a lot of harm that we can be treating these individuals in a lot more of a humane way. But I don't think the Biden administration is ready to have that conversation yet. So
right. I had somebody tell me yesterday, it was a green card holder who petitioned his spouse, and he says, I've never, ever understood why people would go to the Mexican border to enter the U.S. when there's legal pathways until I waited 5 years for my spouse to enter legally, and the State Department delays the application. And
yes.
he said, I get it. I understand now, right? So
yeah, and even that is kind of a very privileged position at that point. You have to see it from such a humane way in order to really understand what these individuals are going through. But these policies are not humane,
right.
especially not the way they're being implemented.
Right. Okay. We have a bunch of questions. What do we got?
Yes, I see that now.
You want to wrap up anything you had here from your notes that you think we should?
Oh no, I think just in general, we want to be looking to Title 42 and DACA news in the next couple of weeks. I think there's going to be some movement there, hopefully. But otherwise, we're here for any other questions that anyone has out there on pretty much any topic, anything that comes to mind.
Great. Okay, so I can minus those notes. And one thing I was going to mention, and let me see if I can share it. I don't know. I shouldn't try to do fancy things.
Definitely not fancy things. You muted yourself.
No, I muted myself. I was going to try to share the screen and present.
Mm. You are muted, Curtis, but I will speak in the meantime for you. This is the new page.
Yeah, sorry. So the State Department has done, I don't know how I keep doing that. The State Department has done something right. They have made a website for family reunifications for Afghans that is easy to understand.
Which is so rare for a .gov website.
Yeah, of all the government websites, this is probably the easiest one I've ever seen to understand if you're a US citizen.
It's almost done on Squarespace or something. So you're muted again. Here we go. Curtis, I think you're still muted.
Myself. Why do I keep muting
Well,
myself?
is there maybe like a shortcut on a keyboard? I don't know. Yeah.
I think so.
Just speak with your hands up like this.
Okay, I promise. So, while this website is great, it's got some shortcomings. There's no place for family reunification. They really need to work on that. It's my mic was unplugged.
Technical difficulties. This is also like new software that we're using, so it's understandable.
Nah, it's not. I need to. So anyway, there's a new website if you're Afghan family. Stop sharing screen. Let's go to questions.
Let's see.
Let's always start with the first one, even if it's crazy. Are attorneys allowed to ask the courts on status of their decision for DV 2020 and 2021? You're talking about the appeal that's before the Circuit Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. No. We respect the courts and their process. We don't want judges to be like customer service representatives are answering the phone to say, oh, let me give you the status of your case. No, when they are ready to issue their opinion, they will do it. And since we want relief from the courts, we have to play by the court's rules. That's basically it. So we don't want to do it. We don't want any DVs, any of our clients ever to email a court to say, when are you going to get the opinion?
Yeah, let's emphasize that last part. Yeah, we definitely don't want client court communications like that. Is unbecoming. Yeah, definitely.
I understand the frustration. And he's got a follow-up. You can have one follow-up today. Once a decision is made by the courts of appeals, what do we envision the process will be? Will we have to apply using our existing DS-260s, or will we have to fill out new ones again? It'll be your existing DS-260s. Actually, we do know from the State Department's own communication that your files have already been sent to the embassy from KCC. They don't have the files anymore. They've already wrapped them up and sent them, even though the C Act hasn't changed. They have to do a few lines of code to make that active once we win the appeal, and for good luck, win summary judgment. So that's how it will work. You will not have to do a new DS-260. Many of you will need to contact the embassy to update your DS-260. For example, if your family's grown, or if you have got a divorce or married, because to be issued a visa, you need to have that family section perfect, or it will have consequences later. Okay. Let's see. What about DV 2021 is what Mustafa says. Well, it's over, except for the people that were good luck plaintiffs, GO plaintiffs, or could benefit from the Ray order. With your forward question, I don't know if you were a good luck plaintiff, a GO plaintiff, or you were at one of the embassies that could benefit from Ray. So can't help you that much. It's better to give as much context to a question as possible.
Definitely, yeah. I noticed somebody asked around there about what can I do for my cousin? Give me some more information. We can figure it out together.
You could throw him a party. You could bake him a cake, chocolate cake. Okay. What are the chances for the mandamus for the phone with the embassy to be ruled in our favor? I think that there's a translation problem or something for the phone with the embassy. What are the chances for the mandamus for the phone? I think maybe he's talking about our group case for Islamabad. What do you think? And basically, I've three legal theories that we're wrapping up in that case. That's the case we're onboarding right now. I will try to share screen again, even though I know better. If you go to our website, right up here at the top, new group lawsuit for Islamabad immigrant visa applicants. That's what he's probably talking about. We are onboarding that right now until November 21st, and we will file that case on November 25th. That's for certain visa categories that are waiting for visas at Islamabad. Okay. Oh, wow. And there's a link. Okay. So his question is what are the chances? And I'm not a mathematician, and I don't have enough data or information to really give you a number. The three legal theories that I'm trying here, no one's ever won on three of them. One of them we've tried to use before and not been successful with. The other two are sort of new. I'm optimistic that if we don't win before a judge, we would change policy, just because the government doesn't like to be sued, and they like to impress judges to show that the judges that they are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So sometimes that means issuing some or all the visas for the applicants in the case, for the plaintiffs in the case. So we never know what's going to happen, but I'm optimistic that it's going to be positive. You know, it can't be any worse at Islamabad. It can't be any worse than it is now. So,
if only we could function in such a mathematical way in the law.
Yeah.
It would be unethical.
The odds are 76.12 that we will be successful. Part of this is the calculus is you got to know who your judge is, and we don't know who your judge is until you file the complaint. They don't assign the judge. So how would we possibly predict what's going to happen? It's just,
and even with the judge, I have been surprised.
Yeah. Hi, Barry. Hope you're doing great too. Hello, Sala. Okay. Okay. Barry says, how far are with the Gomez and other related lawsuits? Well, when you're saying Gomez and other related, I'm going to assume you're talking about DV 2020 lawsuits. The 2020 lawsuits related to Gomez are Muhammad, Fangjong, Kennedy, and Aker. Those 4 cases are wrapped up together. 5 cases, if you include Gomez. But almost all those plaintiffs are Gomez class members. So here's how far we are. We won preliminary injunctive relief. We won it again, and then we won summary judgment. So we won, actually, if you count those little orders in between, we probably won 5 favorable orders from Judge Mehta. Biden administration is not happy about these orders. They're being, where the courts are trying to help immigrants, I guess. I don't know. And so they appealed the final judgment on summary judgment. So we've won the Gomez case, and the government's appealed it. And so we are waiting for the decision from the appeals court, because there's a stay on the implementation of the order until the appeals court issues their order. So that's where that's at. There was a hearing in September, around September 15th, on the appeal. So we're hopeful that there's an opinion that comes out on that appeal soon. But appeals courts, like federal district courts, they get to take their time.
And yes, and for good reason. I mean, to me, I feel like it's better for them to take their time in that sense, because it means that they are taking into account what was argued, the plaintiffs behind this lawsuit, I hope. Right. So really, I know it's heartbreaking and it's painful, but they need to take their time.
Right.
And it's a complicated. I mean, we saw from this past DV 2022. All the hearings. These are complicated matters, and these judges are taking their time to really try and understand them. And for that, at the very least, I'm thankful for that.
Yeah, I'm thankful too. I would rather have the best decision than the quickest decision.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
Scrolling down for the questions, there's some conversations going back and forth from the people in the questions. James from Liberia. Hello, James.
Hi, James.
Walt says, is it normal to take all this time to render a decision from the Court of Appeal? Is it talking from a DV 2020 or 2021 selectee? And the answer is yes. It actually is more common to take longer. We are hopeful that it won't take as long as it normally takes. Like it'll take 3 months around is what I'm hoping for. It's October, November, December. That would be wonderful, but that's just a hope. Okay. I
think there's an asylum question. I'm not quite sure.
I couldn't tell if there was an asylum question. It was just asylum conversation here. Let me skip that. Mantosh Santosh asks, what are the latest news for Good Luck and Gomez cases? I've kind of talked about that a little bit. We're waiting on the opinion from the Circuit Court of Appeals, which will deal with both of those appeals, both the Good Luck and the Gomez appeals. If the judge decides to satisfy our request, well, first of all, the appeals court's 3 judges. It's a 3-judge panel. So if they decide in our favor, how prepared is the government? Oh, great question. The government is prepared to implement the orders, mainly thanks to Judge Amit Mehta, who ordered them to be prepared. And they submitted a declaration a couple months ago. Was it in September? That said, we're all ready to go. Yeah, it was in September because I was dealing with too much to handle, and I put a sticky note here that said, deal with this later. All the IT is done. The State Department now can issue visas to prior year DVs if we beat the appeal. Only the ones that they are legally obligated to. They're not going to just go back to, hey, you won DV 2010, let me give you a visa. They're not going to do that. Okay. Oh, a Good Luck plaintiff. Hello. DQ low number from Russia. Wife is main applicant. He's outside of Russia, wants to cross the border into Mexico, political asylum. What problem will my wife face in the future? Very good question. Your wife will not face a problem because you seek political asylum.
Yes.
Now, there's no guarantee that she will, as a selectee, whether she's Russian or any nationality, get one of the Good Luck visas, because the judge only reserved 6,914, and there's 3 times that number of plaintiffs. There's 20,000 plus plaintiffs. So, but she would have another path if you were able to get in the U.S. and granted asylum. His wife would have another path at that point, right, Carolina?
Well, they would have to be within the year, so long as it's within the year since they entered the United States. They have 1 year to claim asylum.
Well, he's just him. So if he applies for asylum within a year of entering the U.S., he's granted asylum, then he can petition for her on like a follow to join, right?
Yes. Okay. They would have to be, yes. I think there's a difference between the word beneficiary and derivative that I'm always very cautious to make a difference on. So
maybe I messed up, but what I'm
saying,
no,
but I am gonna put a note on that, and we can circle back and make sure that
if he gets asylum in the U.S., there's a path for his
yes
to join.
Yes.
James, your cousin wants you to immigrate to the U.S. How can you help? I cannot help with that because the Immigration and Nationality Act does not have a visa category for cousin. Um, only like immediate family members, siblings, yes, but it's a long process. But there's no it's not helpful that you have a cousin in the U.S. that wants you to immigrate.
Yeah, it would. I mean, even through employment, there's kind of a gray area. There's
Right.
You can't be in the same family. There is kind of ways, but it has to be distant in their family.
Yeah, and it takes a little bit of money.
It does, yes. Especially the green card perm process. That is a very expensive process.
James asked how many good luck plaintiffs in Liberia. I don't know. I used to know that. Let me see if I can find it on the website. DV 2021. Good luck. We had a map up there.
Oh, that's cool. That's right.
But the map only has the top countries and it's not one of the top. So I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I like Liberia because there's a little historic fact that people don't know. 2 Liberian presidents were born in Kentucky. I'm from Kentucky. So I've always thought that was kind of cool. I mean, of course,
that is quite the trivia fact.
The reason it happened is sort of, a shameful stain on American history, but it's cool. I think that Liberia should sort of be rewarded with that special, because of that special relationship. But I'm alone in that apparently, because Liberian immigrants are definitely not being treated with any kind of special perk.
Yeah.
Okay. Isabella is asking, how would seeking asylum affect my, I think Isabella's not asking this for herself, I don't think, but how would seeking asylum affect my DV 2020-21 opportunity? I do get that question a lot. If you enter the United States to seek asylum, you are probably going to end your DV path and just take this path for a couple different reasons. One, we don't know if adjustment of status will be available for reserved visas that were reserved by these judges.
Exactly.
I've asked the government attorneys multiple times, and they basically have said that the USCIS, they haven't made up their mind. They're talking to the State Department, and they just haven't decided, but they did push back and say, hey, your lawsuits were about visas. Why would we let people have green cards in the US? So they've got an argument. We've got an argument to fight back on that, but I don't know if there's going to be time for that fight. So if someone enters the US to seek asylum, it will probably end the DV journey. The other reason, so you know, is if you don't have lawful status in the US, you can't adjust to the DV except under certain exceptions. One of those exceptions is that it's not your fault you don't have lawful status because you applied for asylum. But not all USCIS officers and regions recognize that exception. Like we know that in San Francisco they do. But there's just a lot of obstacles. If you decide to take that asylum path, there's a lot of obstacles to getting back on the DV path, right? So you just kind of have to let go of one to grab the other. If you don't.
That's definitely a fair question. Even in situations within asylum, I actually recently was asked this. There's the CAT, the Convention Against Torture versus asylum. There's a very fine line between those two categories, but one has a path to legal permanent residence, which is asylum, whereas the CAT will bar you from a legal permanent residence path. So it's important to know that sometimes you do need to choose one or the other.
Right. Same kind of deal. There's a choice like that with the U visa and VAWA too, right? One has advantages and one doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
Fod says, any idea of visa bulletin moving forward anytime soon? This is something I forgot to bring up in the news.
About the visa categories.
Yeah, so the December visa bulletin was released today. For our DVs that are watching, there was some good news for you because there were movements in all regions, and it was a healthy jump so that more DVs will be eligible for interviews in January. Glad to see that. We don't represent a lot of DV 2023 selectees, but we are open to that. You can go to our website if you wanted to hire us to represent you. Okay, the second question. No, it's not a question. It's this question. Any idea of it moving forward? The reason he's asking this, I'm guessing, is because he's a family preference category visa applicant, and the family preference categories did not move. This visa bulletin for December was identical to the one for November. And a lot of people are saying, why is that? Well, hard truth, it's because Secretary Blinken, the Secretary of State of the United States of America, does not value family preference immigrant visa category. Okay, these categories. He values non-immigrant visa categories like students and visitors, which I don't know if he owns a hotel or a school. I don't know. No, that's a joke. It's a joke. You can't joke about this stuff. It's serious.
It is serious, but it is, I mean, call it what it is. They're focusing on economic-based visa categories, whether that is employment-based, whether it's students. They are truly trying to, yes, I did the sign before. I wasn't snapping or anything. It's the sign for money because it is what it is. These are facts. This is not an opinion. There's just simply a sort of preference right now for visas such as the investor visa, that's the e-visa, employment visas, maybe like the O visa. H-1B season is coming up, so we're going to see a lot of that.
So I've been talking to people in DC for about a year now because I recognize there's a vacuum in that there's not an organization that is devoted to lobbying for the interest of family-based visa applicants, specifically family preference categories. There's no entity out there that does that. And so that's contrasted with the employment visa categories. Have a strong lobby. Well, that fight with each other actually, and then they've got lots of different entities doing that, and the schools have lobbyists, colleges have lobbyists. They need students paying out-of-state tuition. Foreign nationals pay a lot of the tuitions that keep the lights on at American colleges. And so you've got those interest groups lobbying Congress, lobbying the White House, lobbying the State Department to get what they want. And nobody's really lobbying on behalf of family preference visa categories. So I don't know. That's on my list of stuff to explore on how we could foster a new organization that looks out for you guys.
That's so interesting, Curtis. And I'm sure that there's plenty of communities out there that are hurting right now because of these backlogs from specific countries. I mean, the backlog for India is just, it's shameful. It's really painful to see.
Right. And I think one of the reasons why there isn't this group that lobbies for family preference categories is because they're coming from different countries and communities that typically didn't network together, like Pakistans and Indians and I don't know, I'm trying to think of other examples. Ukrainians and Russians do not hang out in groups together right now. But also they do, because we found that with the DV lottery, you get all these people in the same room and all of a sudden they realize that they do have the same interest. And I think that that's the vision for the kind of organization that will fill that void. One that doesn't look out just for Iranians, just for Indians, just for Pakistan or whatever, but looks out for all family preference immigrants, right? Or all family immigrants, something. Anyway.
I think that that's poignant, especially given the fact that family reunification has been such an important issue just throughout these past two administrations.
Right.
There is something to be said about family reunification values that this country is supposedly standing for, and family values in general, that we claim that we are a country so founded on family values. Well, what families exactly? Maybe
Right.
they're
Right.
being a little bit selective.
Right. Yeah, I remember in 2018, 2019, we're filing these lawsuits related to the Muslim ban, and we're saying, look at all this family separation that the Trump administration is causing because the petitioners can't have their family in the U.S. And then they started they started like physically separating children and putting them in cages at the border, and they took the term away. And now people think family separation means you tear the child away and you put them in a cage. And
family separation has been going on for
right. But the irony is, whether or not you tear the child physically away and put him in a cage, or you don't give him a visa to where he thinks his father lives in a little screen on his mother's phone, it's still family separation. And right now you have thousands of families, American families, where the children are living in, they think that their parents live in little screens on their parents' phones because they're on different continents. So
yeah. Yep. Even in this past season for the diversity visa lottery, we saw families be separated because the applicant was approved, but the husband and the child wasn't, or the wife and the child wasn't, or vice versa. The beneficiaries were approved, but the applicant wasn't. And so now what?
And see, that's always happened, except that there was always a solution in the past. They could just file the selectee could get to the U.S., file an I-130 petition, wham, bam, within a year, they bring the rest of the family. Within a year is still a long time. I understand that. But now that's changed to a 2 to 5 year situation, depending on what embassy, what country they're in, stuff like that. So,
which is terrifying to even think about the specific countries that some of these families are in. Like Iran right now is in a situation where we're seeing some of our clients not be able to communicate with us because there's no internet. I mean, they're harrowing prospects. They're harrowing situations that are happening. That, as you said, there were solutions in the past, or at least solutions. Right. There were some remedies.
They were taken away. Okay, I'm sorry about my rants, you all. I'm very opinionated.
I think that's why you have an audience, Curtis.
I think it's because of the work we get done, and they just put up with my opinions.
Anyway. Your Twitter feed is one to behold. I will say.
If I do have an opinion on something, I put it on Twitter because that's what Twitter's for. That's the way I look at it. Anyway,
at least for the time being, right? For however long.
And I'll go ahead and confess, I paid the $8 for the blue check mark because I wanted to make sure everybody has access to my opinions.
There you go.
It wasn't about anything else. I'm just like, well, I wouldn't want people to be. It's for the people. I wouldn't want them to be stolen from my opinion. Anyway, can we transfer IR1 category case from one embassy to a different embassy in a different embassy on a visitor visa? Osama, great question. I see it happen. As I understand the procedure, I went over this before. Use the NVC inquiry form. Is that what that form's called?
The public inquiry form. It looks ancient, but yes.
And since you will not have evidence of permanent residence there, you should have something. I mean, if you have the visitor visa, throw that in there. They will go to the embassy and ask the embassy, hey, you want to do this? And the embassy will say yes or no. And then the NVC will come back to you and say yes or no. Then if the NVC says no, go directly to the embassy. Not physically in a car. Email the embassy, call the embassy. And then if you have the means and the mobility, you can go to the country where it's much more compelling argument. If you're actually physically in a country and the consular officer has nothing else to do, and they get an email that says, hey, can we come in and do our visa interview? They're going to more likely than not go along. So just don't do that at an embassy that has a huge backlog.
Oh my goodness.
I am getting a lot of inquiries from Pakistan saying, can I transfer my case to Abu Dhabi? No. Yes. I mean, why would you want to, is what I meant to say. It's an embassy that has a backlog that's comparable, not quite as bad, but bad. So if you're going to transfer, do not transfer. I know why the question happens, because that's one of the easier places to get a visa. But you don't want to you don't want to lose your place in line to go in back of another long line.
Mm-hmm. And I understand the anxieties. Like, I mean, we definitely understand that need to, well, maybe that line is shorter.
Right.
It's definitely understandable, but check with an immigration attorney first.
Check with me. I talk about this conversation on Telegram. I go to sleep sometimes in the middle of a sentence where I'm talking about whether or not to transfer a case to Malaysia or something. And I wake up and I'm like, oh, I better tell them the rest of that sentence. Okay. So Adne says, is there any chance the government could withdraw the appeal? Yes. And if our followers, one of them includes somebody from the Biden administration, y'all should do that. That would be good. I don't think it's going to happen, but they could do it at any point.
Yes.
It would be the right thing to do. Oh my goodness. Okay, so here's a asylum question. My wife have a final order removal, asylum denied. I'm U.S. citizen. Can I reopen her case since her BIA a motion to reopen denied in 2003? That means she's in the U.S. with him, I think. And
it sounds like her removal asylum application was denied.
We don't know how she entered the U.S. That's an important factor here. So you need to email us and we'll talk to you.
Especially for removal asylum cases, those tend to be very detail specific. They're very unique cases, one case to another. But
right.
We're happy to help.
Yeah. And when you email, send the final removal order also and the asylum denial. When people come to me for a consult and they have the most information, they get the quickest response and the most accurate response. Oh, there's a nice little email address to get with us. It's good. Nana asked this question. Can you help me gain admission to one of the universities in USA to pursue my second degree? No, that's not what we do. However, most universities in the US love foreign national students because they're going to ask you to pay out-of-state tuition. So most of them have a little section on their website that will help you. And so just Google is your friend.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely what Curtis said about going directly through the universities. They tend to have their own international admissions office, fill out the forms necessary. This is the kind of process that you want to go directly through an academic institution. They're built for that process.
Okay, Edna says, may I benefit from the Ray order? If I got an F1 visa, that will be my future with that order. Okay, I can't tell you if you could benefit from the Ray order if you don't tell me what embassy you were waiting on for your DV 2021 visa. But if you were in the U.S., F1, okay, for y'all just joining like the immigration conversation, you may not know this, but F1 is a non-immigrant visa category for students, and it's also an immigrant visa category for unmarried children of U.S. citizens or something.
Confusing, right? Family,
yeah.
like first family,
people.
right?
It confuses me, as you could
yes, no, I understand. I was like, wait, you're right.
So when people say F1 visa, I don't know what they mean, and I get confused. So I don't know how to answer that question without confusing you more. When you say F1 visa, say what kind of F1 visa.
Yeah, family first preference, immediate relative, yeah, versus F-1.
It's the dash. Is that the difference?
I think maybe it's the dash. I don't know.
I'm going to be embarrassed if everyone knew that, but me. Okay. Is there a possibility that the DV 2020 winners will be included in another category to identify us? and give us the possibility of an interview in Havana. Andrew, you are the first person to ask me that question. And it is a very interesting question, and I'm going to ask the government because two things have happened. The State Department has claimed that they've already dispatched the cases to embassies. And then after that, Havana opened for all visa categories. So your question is really, was your case dispatched to Georgetown? And how can we undo that? Because it costs, Carolina, do you know how much it cost someone from Cuba to get to Georgetown?
Yes. You know what? As a non-Cuban, I cannot speak to that. Yeah. But as someone who knows many, I can say it's a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm not a Cuban either. I've never made the trip on a map. I think people look at it and say, oh, look, it's just a little bit of water. But most people make this trip by going through Spain or in the old days, Moscow, or some kind of like crazy trip around the world. Because
I mean, recently there's been also through Mexico that has been, there has been a percentage of Cubans that have been seeking to enter the U.S. through Mexico.
Right, but I mean to get to Georgetown. When the U.S. designated Georgetown as the substitute embassy for Cuba, I think they did it because somebody was looking at a map and said, oh, it's close to Cuba. There weren't any flights from Havana to Georgetown, but someone looked at a map and said, oh, it's close. Look, I can draw a little line. So anyway, what I'm getting at is this is an important question because it could mean the difference of like $5,000 per family or something or more. So I will look into that, Andrew.
And it's also to be noted, the embassy, I think, doesn't start resuming interviews until like January, until like the new year. So there's also that. There's it's not effective immediately. I think it's starting sometime in January of next year.
We know our DV 2020 and 2021, at this point, those kind of visa adjudications are not going to resume before January either. But if we could get those interviews in Havana instead of Georgetown, that would be good.
That would be amazing.
So thank you for that question. Wald says, do you think all good luck plaintiffs will have a chance to be interviewed? No. It's just mathematically, that would not be necessary. If they've only got 7,000 visas, 6,914, they would not need to interview over 20,000 visa applicants to issue those visas. Okay.
I think Adonai also, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
No, someone reworded their F1 question, so we'll get to it after this one.
Hang on to that, and you can go to it next.
Sure.
I'm a Kennedy plaintiff. I have a question. How can I know the stage of my file? Keep in mind, sir, that my DS was processed by KCC. I called them and also received the document confirmation. The stage of your file is the same as it was on September 30th, 2020. That's not changed. All DV 2020 applicants, like all DV 2021 applicants, those cases were frozen in time at the end of at midnight on September 30th. So you already know the stage because it was the stage at the end. Okay, you're in a good position if you had already received the document confirmation. Although now, I don't know if you know this, they aren't submitting documents to KCC anymore. They did away with that last year. Now you just take the documents with you to interview.
Despite some confusing emails that have been going around from the KCC that say otherwise.
Right. They haven't changed all the wording on the websites either. But
yeah.
Do you have that reworded question? Oh, good.
Yes.
I'm in Italy. I was a DV 2021 winner. Oh, good. So you are eligible for the RAID case if you were waiting on your visa from Italy in September of 2021. If you just showed up in Italy, you're cheating. That doesn't work. Okay. If I get the student visa, he used a dash, so maybe that's what it is. What will be my future with RAID order? Okay. Here's what I think. I think that you should go ahead and get the student visa. Come study in America. It's going to change your life. And if you are scheduled for an interview in Italy, get on a plane and go back to Italy. Tell your professor you have COVID or something. I don't know. Tell them you're going to get a green card. Take a week off, go to Italy, get your visa, immigrant visa, and come back, and then you don't need the student visa. So that's my advice.
There may also, I mean, co-sign on that, but there may also be an issue with sometimes I've seen this where individuals get denied their student visa because they need to show that they have ties to their home country,
Right.
that they're going to complete they're going to complete their degree and then leave.
I have like 30 or more than 30. I did a list once of all the good luck plaintiffs that have got student visas since the end of the fiscal year 2021. And I just couldn't keep up with it because there are so many. Many good luck plaintiffs are now living in the US on F1s or other kind of non-immigrant visas.
Awesome.
So it won't be an obstacle. That will not be an obstacle. However, there are still people that are denied F1s every day because they go into their visa interview thinking, I'm going to use this to immigrate in the US. You can't do that. You have to understand that's not what this is for. And you have to convince the consular officer of the truth that you will return, you will leave the US before that visa expires.
And it's that word intent, right? There's every visa category has an intent. Some of them allow you to have dual intent. For example, the O visa, the talent visa, the extraordinary ability visa. Typically, it's a visa where you have a non-immigrant intent, but should the circumstances change, you won't be penalized for having that intent to remain here and have a path to a green card. But it's what Curtis said. You need to be aware of the visa category that you're seeking and make sure if it's a non-intent visa that you have that clear. And if it's a dual intent visa, then, know how to navigate it.
Right. Good answer. So we have an Afghan 2020 selectee. So I understand why you're sad. It's been a rough couple of years for you. If we beat the appeal and 2020 visas adjudications resume, your case will be at Islamabad, not at Kabul. Kabul's not open, but we don't know if that will happen or when that will happen. Okay, so still some uncertainty, and I'm sorry about that, Kayan. How many good luck plaintiffs in Morocco? I know this one. 1,295 selectees. So I don't know how many plaintiffs that is. Probably 2,300, something like that. They're lucky in one respect that Casablanca is like one of the best U.S. embassies in the system. They know how to do high volume visa. They're organized, right?
It's truly impressive.
Yeah, but it is a disadvantage that there are so many assigned to that one embassy.
Yeah.
So it's a good and a bad. Please check our good luck. Oh, okay. Someone asked the same question for Algeria. It's 910 selectees, which is about 2,000 plaintiffs.
You just these by memory? Like you're just recalling?
Okay. And also, I feel like I've had conversations with all 910 Algerians.
I was going to believe you if you said that these were numbers that you just retained.
Yeah, I'm like, well, there's Jim, and then there's Jane, and there's Andrew, and then no. Hello, Morrison. Can I apply to expedite requests to NVC based on mental health issues like anxiety and stress? I have a therapist and psychiatrist nurse. I'm going to answer this, and then we'll see if Carolina agrees. You can try that, but overwhelmingly, the State Department does not recognize mental health and psychological and anxiety and stress issues as being real. It's wrong. And I think they do that because they realize that they put everybody through all those things. And if it's wrong, that means they're wrong. So they pretend like none of that exists. And what really matters is, gosh, what's Rafael call this? The symptoms of these things. You'll have physical symptoms. You actually get sick if you run around long enough with anxiety and stress. You're going to get sick somehow. And those symptoms, yeah, they'll recognize those, right? So if you develop an ulcer or something like that, they will recognize that as a symptom that will give you an expedite. But it's still worth it.
I agree.
Okay.
No, I definitely agree. It's sad that mental health issues on their own aren't seen as physical ailments. That you have to kind of prove that mental health plus. What is that plus? Well, the plus is I was hospitalized. I have developed other diagnoses that aren't just anxiety related. There has to be some kind of plus factor to it.
I just remember the phrase that Rafael used, the physical manifestations of the mental health issues. And if you think you don't have them, think about it more, because I guarantee you your body is not in 100% health. And even if everybody's got something wrong with them, even if they're in denial about it.
And speak to your therapist and your psychiatrist specifically about that, because while anxiety and stress on their own aren't going to be enough, you are welcome to offer therapist letters, psychiatric letters that go a little bit deeper into the specific ailments that you're going through. So work with your doctor to see, what can be done as far as evidentiary documents are concerned.
I just realized we went over 8 minutes. Why'd you let me do that? I didn't know that.
Oh, I haven't even looked. I've been having a great time.
Me too. Well, let me see if there's any important questions, since we almost got them all.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you all so much for your questions.
Arkan says we're looking for a Russian broadcast. That's a great idea. I'm going to talk to Gomez on our team about arranging that, and we'll definitely do that soon, probably within a week or two. Can Pakistani go to Chinese embassy? How is the backlog in China? The backlog in China is not that bad. Whether or not you can go to China, I mean, you can go to the U.S. embassy in China is what you mean. Depends upon whether or not you have a visa to China. There's some countries that you don't need a visa to, but I'm pretty sure Pakistanis need a visa to get to China. So you need to research that part on your own, because we don't do that part. Okay, I'm going to wrap this up because it's probably too long for most people anyway.
No, but thank you all so much to all the viewers and to your questions. This was great.
Thank you for all the viewers, and thank you for joining me, Carolina.
No, thank you.
Thank you for Gomez and Isabella for supporting us, and everybody have a great Wednesday night or Thursday morning. Right?
And I hope wherever you are, it's not snowing, because in Chicago it is, and that's why I'm wearing this sweater. Yeah. Just trying to be a little bit festive. Yeah, I'm trying to make the best of it.
Okay, bye-bye. Oh, wait. I don't push that button. I push this one.